Texans love to talk tough on homelessness. They brag about cleaning up the streets like they're talking about beer cans instead of living, breathing human beings. People with names, scars, families, and stories that didn't end where the sidewalk begins. Every winter, emergency rooms fill up with people suffering from hypothermia, frostbite, infections, and death. People whose only crime was not having enough money to survive a cold front. And the cruelest irony is that the loudest cheerleaders for this misery, the ones who never tire of lecturing everyone about personal responsibility while human beings freeze to death on the streets, are the same voices that drape themselves in the banner of being pro-life. Yet their rhetoric echoes not compassion but the callous sneer of Ebenezer Scrooge. If they would rather die, then they had better do it and decrease the surplus population. This is less about morality than it is about moral bankruptcy, a chorus of Scrooges masquerading as saints. Let's be honest, Texas isn't failing the unhoused. Texas is deliberately choosing cruelty. Cities pass law banning camping, but offer nowhere for displaced folks to go. Police are forced into the role of social workers with handcuffs. Local leaders brag about removing encampments. Translation, we confiscated what little they owned, threw it in a dumpster, bulldozed their shelter, and called it progress. And here's the part that nobody wants to say out loud, and there's really no way to get around it. Basic survival has been criminalized. Being homeless is one of the only crimes in America where your status, not your actions, makes you a criminal. Not theft, not violence, simply existing in public while poor and without an address. That makes the unhoused one of the largest groups in Texas and in America for whom laws are designed and passed not to protect people, but to punish them for the crime of being visible. That's not governance, that's PR with a body count. We spend millions policing homelessness and pennies preventing it. It's like trying to fix the Texas power grid with a handful of Christmas lights and a prayer. Looks festive on Facebook, but nobody survives the winter on it. The most disturbing part is that they already know what actually works. Housing, mental health services, addiction treatment, job pathways, rapid rehousing, and not treating every struggling Texan like a suspect. You know, real solutions. But try pitching that to the Texas legislature, where the first question is always, how do we protect property values while pretending human values are optional? Because somehow the same state that eagerly subsidizes billion-dollar stadiums for teams that lose more often than they win suddenly discovers religion in fiscal conservatism when someone asks for a warming shelter that doesn't feel like a prison intake room. Funny how that works. And let me be very clear on something. I speak from personal experience. I spent the winter of 1990 and 91 encamped in a desert during Desert Shield and Desert Storm. I had gear, I had logistics, I had food, medical support, and a chain of command. And even with supply lines, equipment, and backup, cold exposure still messes with your body, your head, and your will to survive. The cold doesn't care if you're tough, and it sure as hell doesn't care if you're poor. I wouldn't wish winter encampment on anyone, much less people with no shelter, no backup, no supplies, and nowhere that they're legally allowed to exist. And I damn sure wouldn't call it public policy. So if you think that clearing encampments in freezing weather is compassion, then it's obvious you've never spent a night wondering whether your body will still work in the morning. Real liberty doesn't come from over-policing poverty. It comes from under-governing where government does harm, and empowering communities where government doesn't. Let's get specific. Decriminalize survival. Poverty is not a law enforcement issue. Unleash civil society. Allow micro-shelters, tiny homes, converted lots, safe parking programs, and church-run warming centers. Empower local innovation. Allow counties, cities, and nonprofits to experiment without being sued into paralysis by the state. End the housing gatekeeping industrial complex, zoning boards, NIMBY HOAs, and city councils that treat shelter like it's contagious. Libertarianism isn't every man for himself. It's get the government out of the way so people can actually help each other. And Texans, real Texans like my wife and her friends, already do that. Every Christmas, Texans love to talk about the season of giving. But giving isn't a season. Giving is a system. And ours is rigged to fail the people freezing at the bottom who need it most, right when the weather turns deadly. And if none of that was powerful enough for you to look at this issue with a different set of eyes, try this one. If Texas is truly God's country, then why the hell are so many of his children sleeping in the dirt or on frozen concrete? This year, when you see nativity scenes in front of City Hall and in your neighborhood yards, ask yourself one question. If Mary and Joseph had showed up in Texas tonight, would we offer them shelter or would we call the cops? Let me know in the comments. Better yet, share this if you think Texas can do better than Scrooge, because no room at the inn was supposed to be a tragedy, not state policy.